Good afternoon to all of you. I think it's really a real pleasure to participate to this main event. As I say, I'm the CEO of Da쏘시스템. And if you don't know us, what do? We provide virtual worlds for the real life. And that's the reason why we are participating to this event, because I think I have something to share with you. So it's an honor to be part of this event for a few reasons. One is because you know, the knowledge means something for me. And I'm very convinced that the knowledge will shape the world we live in. The theme also, which is the new Odyssey, navigating, you know, the great transitions, is also resonating for me, and I will tell you why. Because the virtualization of the world is a true Odyssey. You know, it's not only a technological change, but I think it's an adventure of imagination and science. So today, my topic and my brief introduction will be really, I want to share with you my conviction about the virtualization of the world. That's what I'm planning to do. And I believe, as a leader of one global company who is acting to this virtualization of the world, I have a lot of things to share with you because I think the 21st century is opening this new world we need to explore and to conquest. So first of all, let me introduce briefly who we are and what Da쏘시스템 is doing. So Da쏘시스템 is a global leader, as I was saying, to providing virtual world for real life. So what does it mean? It means we are developing the virtual twin of all the different objects you know on Earth. Whatever it's the car, a plane, a drug, a bottle of shampoo, you know, all those objects has been virtualized before to be really produced and designed. And this is what we do. So really we create the virtual twin of everything for the different sectors. And you can see the sector we are covering, the manufacturing industry, which is really all the objects you are using in your daily life, the healthcare and science, which is a big topic by itself. And more recently, we diversify in infrastructures and cities because we think the virtual twin is also meaningful for this sector. So as I was saying, you know, we invented 45 years ago the concept of the virtual twin, specifically to develop the airplanes, because we wanted to fly safer, lighter, further. I mean, that was the reason why we needed to have these virtual objects first. And then more recently, we have been able to develop the virtual twin of the art to predict the effect on the drugs, not having to wait many years before to finalize all the tests. And then we are more and more using the virtual twin of the cities, you know, not only to design the neighborhoods, but also to understand what are the consequences if you want to do a complete urban planning. That's really what we do. And the world is our scope. Do you know that almost 100% of the planes, 90% of the car has been globally, worldwide, has been made with our virtual twin? And today, you know, no one will argue too much that before to do the real things, you need to, the physical things, you need to virtually design it and to test it. But what you don't know is, I'm sure you will not fly in a real aircraft without having virtually been tested and being certified. So this is how we have introduced the virtual twin concept nearly 45 years ago. It's also true for the human body and all the living world at large. A few years ago, you know, the Financial Times was writing about us that Da쏘시스템 is virtualizing everything, from the satellites to the bottle of shampoo. But today, I think we could add something which is extremely important. You know, when we were facing the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, do you know that we almost tested virtually 70% of all the vaccines? And that's, by the way, how we have been able to fight against the pandemics, because we were, rather than to do the physical test on the human, we were using the virtual synthetic patient, if you want, to do the test before to introduce the vaccine on the market. So we have built a company which is not only a software company. I think we empower scientists, doctors, innovators, engineers, students, startups, makers, all this large community of people inventing the future. And usually what they do, they are using our virtual twin if you want to imagine what could be the potential future. So this brings me to my first conviction I want to share with you. And my first conviction is very simple. There is a difference between the virtual and the digital. And this is extremely important for you to understand this. And it's not only a question of vocabulary, there is a different meanings behind this. So let me define what the virtual means, at least for me. It means a science-guided imaginations. That's what virtual means. Digitalizing is a different topic. Digitalizing is really to represent what already exists, and it's a way to, if you want, instruments using IT systems to reproduce the existence, the reality. So in a very simple way, you take a document and you transform this document into a file. This is what digitalization is about. Virtualization is a little bit different. Virtualization is the power of the projections of the representations. Because if you want to project the people, you need to represent the world first. You need to represent your imaginations. You need to represent also and to confront your representation with the reality. And you need a space to do this. So this is the reason why I think to explore what I call the unknown, you should start with a fiction. And the fiction is starting with a virtual twin. Remember, Hollywood has invented the Silicon Valley. And it's not the opposite. You know, the Hollywood came first, and then the Silicon Valley is almost reproducing or trying to create what Hollywood invented half a century ago. So for us, virtualization is therefore a new companionship. Virtualizing is really projecting a collective into an imaginary, gathering this community to work together. And definitively, if you want to do it seriously, you need to involve science. Because there is no other way than creating an imagination, but also projecting this by putting a lot of science in it. So I'm convinced about something which is fundamental, the role of science for the industry. There is no progress without science. There is no industry without science. And I think if we want to reproduce something and create useful things for the society, whatever it's the product and the solutions, you need it. So the virtual twin is not simply a digital copy. It's a space where you can navigate the past, but also explore the future. It's also a space where you can make the invisible visible. And on this picture, you have, for example, the flow representation in a big city, and you can see it's not something you can see in the reality. But nevertheless, the way we design we do the urban planning right now, we are representing the flow of air, because that's an easy way to exhaust all the pollutions without having to put another system in it. So for me, the virtual twin is really the union of the scientific knowledge, which is the law of the nature, the law of the physics, with the real world, the evidence, what you could observe in the reality, you know, all the specific cases. And we need to combine this with modeling and simulations to predict, optimize, and also to guide the decisions. And this is what we do. At the end, what we do, we are mixing different techniques together. We combine the modeling, we combine the simulations with data science and artificial intelligence. So now, let me illustrate the power of the virtual twins. And I'm going to take a real example. Our goal has been to realize the virtual twin of everything, including the human body. And why we did this? Because if you want to advance in the precision medicines, you need something equivalent. You need to have a representation of who you are. So to achieve this, we have developed several virtual twins. We started by the skeleton because it was relatively easy to do. Then after, we expand into the heart, which is the example you have here. We call it the living heart. We also developed the microbiota, you know, all the stomach and all the digestion systems, and the brain. And the brain is an interesting one. Why so? Let me picture what is going on. Let's imagine you are a surgeon and you are facing a patient which is having epilepsy. And as you know, epilepsy is an abnormal electrical activities of your neurons. So thanks to our technology, the surgeon can do very simple things. He takes the simple scan of the patients, and he is capable to recreate automatically the brain and all the connection of the brains. And by doing so, we can detect the sensitive areas, we can simulate the spread of the seizures, but more importantly, we can test where to implement the electrodes. And we do this even before even lifting the scalpel. So during the operation now, the surgeons, they are using the virtual twins also to guide their hands, to guide the operations. So it's really a quantum leap, if you want, in the way we do surgery. Keep in mind that what you have seen on the brain or the heart, in this case, it's the same technique we are applying to airplanes, car, power plants, cities. And we invested in a few years ago, in fact a decade ago, in life sciences for one simple reason. It's not because we wanted to diversify the company in a new market. It's because we have the convictions that to build a sustainable world, to build and to invent this new world, you need to understand how the living world is working, how nature is designing things, how nature is designing, but at the same time is preserving things. So I'm making this statement because we do not see industry at large being the problems. We see that the industry could be the solutions to all the problems the society is facing right now. And at Da쏘si스템, we have a purpose. We have a raison d'être, we call it in French, which is harmonizing product, nature, and life. And why we do this? Because I think if we want to enable a sustainable development of the lifestyle, you have to optimize those three things together. You need to co-design, if you want, the three things together. But to do this, you need the representations. You need the representations to invent the new economic model. You need a representation to invent the new usages. How are we going to produce things? How are we going to trade things? And this is basically what we do. My second conviction, which is extremely important, the virtualization is really how to transform the industry. It's really how about this. And the story of Da쏘시스템 is, my view, a powerful illustration of it. You know, since the inception 45 years ago, I think Da쏘시스템 have been a trusted partner of many, many companies around the world, almost 400,000. And they are trusting us because we are guiding them in how they could transform their industry. And since day one, what we are doing, we are trying to virtualize knowledge. So let me explain 45 years in 40 seconds. We started with a 3D representation. And why so? Because at that time, the industry, they were facing something real challenge, which is how could you do the digital assembly before to do it in the reality? Especially when you have to assemble very complex things, a car, a planes, an industrial equipment. That was in the 80s. In the 90s, we came with a new idea. What about if the virtual twin could substitute the physical prototype? No need anymore to do physical prototype. You can use the virtual twin to test the aerodynamics of the airplanes, to test the structure of the airplanes, to figure out what could be the lifetime of the airplanes. That was what we call the digital mock-up approach. And the digital mock-up allow also something very important is to allow almost 100,000 engineers, to develop. This plane is a 777, the first airplane fully digitalized and virtualized. And at that time, you have almost 100,000 engineers working at the same time on the same objects. And for them, we invented something unique, which is, could we do the design in context? You, as an engineer, could you design the airframe taking into account what the others they are doing? In late 90s, we say, what about if we build a virtual twin of the program and the project itself? This will be an easy way to manage the complexity of those objects. In early 2000, we introduced a new concept, which is building the virtual twin is interesting, but managing the life cycle of the virtual twin is becoming extremely important. Because each time you introduce a change, you want to understand the consequences. You want to have the full traceability. You want to have the ability to certify this virtual twin. So that's what we did with what we call the product lifecycle management. In 2010, we say, what about if the twin itself is becoming an experience? And this is extremely important because in this new economy, in the knowledge economy, I think the usage of the product is more important than the product itself. And we see more and more, new experiences coming. If you buy a car, we speak about the car experiences. It's not anymore only the technical specification of the car. So we have to invent something new, and we came with this idea about 3D experience. Could we represent the experience of the products? So for us, the virtual twin was also an interesting concept because now we say we have the twin, but what about if we are giving life to the twin? What about if the twin could be used in not only to design the thing, to produce the things, but also in the day-to-day? And this is how we came with the virtual twin experience, connecting the virtual and the real together, and that's what it means. And the 7th generation, which is the one we are currently working on, we call it 3D universes. And what do? In fact, we are building the complete experience by connecting all the different twins together and integrating the artificial intelligence into it. And why we do this? Because above everything, we are talking about knowledge. And everything you need to do is find a way to represent all the knowledge and the know-how you mobilize. Let me give you an example. If you take a car, you need to be able to test the car under extreme conditions without having to send the car on the north or in the middle of the desert. So we have this ability to recreate the conditions of the tests. But same time, we need also to predict its maintenance. And we need also to simulate its recyclability. So this is what we are calling a 3D universes, because we can not only represent and basically design the products, but we can immerse this product in all the conditions it's going to be used. For the healthcare, I think we want to simulate the art. You have seen it. It's a real one. But why do we want to do this? Because we want to be able to test the treatment on it. We want to be able to guide the surgeons when he's doing the operations. And it's a reality. If you know the people developing the stents, right now, they develop the stents, and they take the virtual heart, and they are testing, and now the FDA is also basically certifying the stents on this. So for the city, what do? We obviously represent and modelize the traffic, the pollutions, the energy consumptions, but more importantly, the twin is becoming also a way to pilot the city in real life, in real time. That's what we do. So how we do this? In fact, we are combining many virtual twins together. And this is possible because now we can enrich this with the artificial intelligence. What we are created, this 3D universe concept, is not a metaverse. The metaverse is the virtual world which is not connected to the reality. Ours is connected, is basically mimicking the reality, and it's really useful, it's safe, and in fact, it's very responsible. So I think this is really changing the game. It's giving the ability to make a leapfrog in terms of performance. And I believe this will be the catalyst of the economy for the 21st century, which is coming to my third conviction. And my third conviction is we are entering is what I call the generative economy. The generative economy is the union of two different things. The urgency to preserve our environment, but at the same time, we need to continue to innovate. You could see this as a contradiction, or you could see this as a way to innovate in a different way. So we believe that the next wave of innovations coming is really making this paradox a source of inspiration and innovation for many, many, many people. But to do this, at the end, if you want to create products and services and systems which are circular, collaborative, and knowledge-driven, you need a different paradigm. And the paradigm is extremely important in this case because I think the tomorrow's winners are the one who knows how to elevate and protect the intellectual property. And that's the reason why we call it the generative economy, because it's really the knowledge is at the core. It's at the core because you need to empower your workforce of the future with new skills, with new capabilities. You need to take inspiration from the living world if you want to generate more than consume. And with many customers right now, we are preparing a world which is interesting because we are producing and we are inventing new materials which are healing themselves. We call it the self-healing materials. We are creating objects who can grow rather than to be manufactured, the same way life is producing things. We are really creating an environment where the societal impact of a product could be scientifically measured and basically anticipated before, to do it. The generative economy, to make this, it's a software-defined economy. And this is where it's knowledge-based. And it's accelerated, in fact, by the artificial intelligence, which is which is spreading across many, many, many domains. And in this new economy, our strong belief is the intellectual property is becoming the new currency. That's the new way to trade. That's the new way to invest also. So what does it mean? It means several things. Soon, the virtual world will generate automatically the real world. Let me give you one example. All of you, you know the 3D printing mechanisms. For example, here you have a shoes as a picture. Do you know that the sole of the shoes could be automatically generated starting from the model because we have invented the printing machine. And the printing machine is taking the virtual representation and creating automatically the physical products. So it's a concrete example how virtual can generate the real automatically. So the factory of the future will be the one who are producing things which are both virtual and real at the same time. We need to embed this virtuality also into the physical objects. And by doing so, this will change the nature of the functions. Let me give you again a concrete example. If you drive your car, you have an experience. And as you may know right now, especially with Tesla, if you change the physical car, you are keeping your parameters, if you want, which is so-called the car experiences, with you. And the next physical car you're going to buy, you will automatically, because it's a software-driven mechanisms, get access to the same experience. Do you know, and we could imagine a drug to cure people which is both virtual and real at the same time. And it's not a dream. We are really doing this. And we have a concrete example because we have developed the first software-defined drug to fight and to treat the migraine on one hand and the schizophrenia on the other hand. And it has been approved by the FDA this year. So you will invent in the future what I call the software-defined products. But at the same time, you will also use a software-defined factory and organization to produce and to invent them. And this will be an economy where, I'm repeating myself, but the intellectual property will become the core. Because if it is automatically generated by artificial intelligence, the real value is the intellectual property you master. So today, my belief, the virtual twin assets are more valued than the physical one. And it's already happening. If you know, maybe you know, the US military authorities, they are no longer buying they are not purchasing anymore the weapon systems without having the producers to deliver the virtual twin at the same time. They want to have both. So in today's economy, I think, if you project a little bit ourselves, the competitiveness and the freedom will rely on how you are protecting and growing your intellectual property, your knowledge and know-how. And the virtual twin will be the collective memory of everything we do. Here is my 4 convictions, and you see me coming. It's all about intellectual property. Everything I told you before is relying on the fact that intellectual property and the knowledge and the know-how is the core. So the industrial value will be in the future how you manage not only the life cycle of the products, but also the entire life cycle of your intellectual property. And let me again give you a concrete example. If you take a car makers, right now they analyze the raw material costs real time. And you have seen recently, you have so much volatility on the raw materials that this could change the entire economic model of the car. So what do? They monitor the fluctuation of the raw material and they regenerate automatically the design of the car and the production of the car, taking this into account. That's how they are transforming their industry. This is how they are also reacting against many uncertainty you have right now in this industry. So it's really a true business transformation because we are moving toward a generative model. And it gives really the agility to navigate all the uncertainty, all the unpredictable things. And if you take what is happening with the geopolitics right now, with the tariff, I think that's the way most of those companies, they are basically taking decisions. They have recreated a virtual world, if you want, whereby all the options could be evaluated before to take the final decisions. So again, beyond the life cycle of the product, I think now it's time to speak about the life cycle of the intellectual property. So how does it work? And again, let me give you an example. In highly regulated industry, compliance is a bottleneck. And it's a bottleneck because to fight against the tariff, many countries around the world are reinforcing the regulations. It's a way indirectly to protect certain markets. But for the industrial company, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Do you know that for an airplanes, the regulation process is between 3 to 5 years, and it's almost 10,000 requirements you need to fulfill, and you need to prove. Do you know for a drug, it's almost 100,000 pages you need to produce for one single authority. Do you know for a bank, you have a regulation almost changing every week. And if you do not comply, the fines, at the end, we are talking about billions. So for all those reasons, our customers, what do? They are using artificial intelligence to read the 100,000 pages of all the documents produced on a weekly basis by all the countries of the world. They extract from those documents the rules, And they are using the virtual representation in order to certify by design. That's the only way for them to make this, to handle this complexity of the world. So this is how we are turning, let's say, a cost or a bottleneck into a competitive edge. Because if you master this better than the others, you have a way to differentiate yourself. My fifth conviction, AI is about trust. It's about trust on one hand and sovereignty on the other hand. Why? Because as a leader for AI for industry, it is extremely crucial for us to make the generativity trustable and sovereign at the same time. You know, many claim AI can do and can solve a lot of things. Yes, this is true. AI can solve a lot of things, but only if you have the right corpuses, if you have the right data set, if the training set is relevant enough to be able to create the trust. So how do you do this? You provide a seamless access to data, all the sources, without compromising the quality, and the AI engine will be trained on this. But the problem is, if you look at an industry, you have as many objects and you have corpuses. And if you project yourself, we are talking about objects does not yet exist. So how could you train something on something where does not exist yet? This is how we are changing the game, because we are using the synthetic data as a way to do the training set. So, but if you want to be a game changer, it's not only this you need to do. You need to anchor your generativity process into the science. Because we need to combine the artificial intelligence with science, modeling, and simulations. That's the only way. So the result is very simple. There are many industries where you could not have hallucinations. You could not have black boxes, right? No one will take a risk with an airplane. No one will take a risk with a drug, with a car. What has been produced automatically needs to be understandable, needs to be certified, and it's not something you can do if you are not mixing the different techniques together. So the industry at large, they do not need what we call a surface level AI. What they need is a deep engineering intelligence. It's a deep understanding how the parts are fitting together, how the material is behaving, how the products evolve, how the process works. And to do this, you need to master a lot of science at the same time. Finally, I think the sovereignty is not longer simply physical. Sovereignty means not only to define the border of your country, you need to put sovereignty in the cyberspace. That's a must. And it's my view, we need to include the sovereignty in many, many virtual components, especially for the data, for the knowledge and the know-how, which is part of the sovereignty legacy for our nations. So it is crucial to build an artificial intelligence on sovereigns, which is sovereign, secure, with control infrastructure. And I think this is coming. Right now, what you see with all the major tech companies coming from the Silicon Valley, they have one single system for all the different people, for all the different countries, for all the different use cases. It's not affordable on a long time, because the virtualization of the society requires the highest level of trust. If the AI engine is making some decision for you, you need to be sure that it's relevant for you. It's protecting your own interest. So it starts, I think, from the trust from the society, from the consumer, from the workers and the citizens. So my last conviction is very simple. There is this big debate right now, is AI going to replace all the workers of the world? This is one way to see it. The other way is to say, what about if AI is becoming the new companionship? What about AI is a way to empower the workforce of the future? What about if AI is a way to transform your daily workflows, to elevate your skills by providing knowledge and know-how at your fingertips? And I believe there is a new partnership to invent, where AI will be the teammate, a new human-machine dialogue, if you want. And AI is not our future. It's only a tool. The future is what you're going to do with it, which is very different. So my view, it's not replacing the people. It amplifies certain things. It does not control. It advises. Does not copy. It creates. So there are many things we can do. And we have enough experiences to tell you that the relevant use cases are when AI is really automating some certain repetitive task, giving more freedom and more time for the people to spend on creativity. It's also true that AI is also enhancing design suggestions, making engineering decisions even better. It's true that AI is also making knowledge accessible to many, many people, and it's a way to boost innovation. It's a way to create more disruptions because you have access to a better knowledge. But there is something we know. If you want to deploy AI at scale within the enterprise, you need to change the management model. For the one who are living the day-to-day in an enterprise, I mean, what we have learned for the last decades is how to manage the risk. And I think now the role of the management is not anymore to manage the risk, it's to project the collective into the future. So this is a major success factor for the generative economy. You know, reasoning in uncertainty is very different from reasoning in the unknown world. I mean, the way you do things, the way you manage the company, the way you project the team, the way you take decisions is very, very different. And you need to mobilize the collective intelligence to do this. And that's the reason why I believe with these new capabilities, all the people could become a designer. A lawyer could become a designer. He's designing his own contract. An accountant could become a designer. He's designing how the revenue recognition could make, right? So this is the new world we are living in. So to wrap up, there are a few key messages I want you to take into account and to keep in mind, and then we will open the Q&A. First, virtual is very different from digital. And please do not make the confusions, right? Remember, digitalizing is reproducing what exists. Virtualizing is creating a new representation to project the people in the future and to invent things. So that's the reason why I call virtual a science-guided imagination. This is what virtual is about. And I think this is at the core of the value creation for the industry, but for the society at large. The second thing is AI is a new companionship to empower the people of the future. Of course, you will have some roles who will be disrupted. But again, this will move the value added to other activities for the people. And we need to guide these transformations. We need to allow this transformation of the daily workflow. We need to elevate the skill of the people. And this is the responsibility of the society to do that. The third key message for you, we are entering into what I call the generative economy, which is a software-defined economy. And it's accelerated by artificial intelligence. And in this economy, the intellectual property is really the new currency. If you do not master the intellectual property, you will not be competitive in this new economy. And there is something you should keep in mind. If I have my phone and give my phone to you, I do not have anymore the usage of the phone. But if I give you or I transfer you my intellectual property, I still have it. So the question is much more how you manage the rights between the different stakeholders in order to maximize the usage of the intellectual property across many, 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 many sectors. And the last piece, I think, it's all about trust and sovereignty. And it's something we still need to invent for the future. That's it. Okay, so thank you so much. Hope to see you. And remember, intellectual property is the next big battle. And that's the reason why this forum is so important, because it's about knowledge, and the future of the economy is a knowledge-driven economy. I'm more than convinced, and I'm sure you are, but now let's make it happen. So thank you so much, and see you next year.